talking with Dave Powell. We're standing on top of Orchard Knob at Chattanooga, where Dave has posed the question, what if Rosecrans had opened up his own cracker line instead of waiting for Grant to open it?
So the cracker line, Grant's first question, which he puts in his memoirs when he arrives here, is he thought the plan was a wonderful plan. His only question was, why hadn't Rosecrans implemented it? And there were a number of reasons for that. The logistical reasons. They were building steamboats in Bridgeport to use the river. They were building pontoons upstream to use as assault boats for the Browns Ferry crossing. Confederate cavalry under Joe Wheeler had just raided through Middle Tennessee, which disrupted the arrival of the 20th Corps, well, the 11th and 12th Corps, eventually to become the 20th Corps under Joe Hooker. All of these pieces were a complicated puzzle, and it took a while to get them organized. If Rosecrans had been able to organize something sooner, especially if the 11th and 12th Corps had been able to bring up their supply trains sooner, it's very possible that Rosecrans could have reopened the cracker line a week or two earlier. The big question then becomes, does Rosecrans get relieved? Does he lose his job? And we're still unsure about that. There's no definitive way to know. But the big fear, the reason that General Rosecrans was replaced, why Grant accepted the orders from Stanton replacing Rosecrans with George Thomas, was reports emanating out of Chattanooga from Assistant Secretary of War Charles A. Dana primarily, that Rosecrans was about to retreat. He was on the cusp of retreating entirely from Chattanooga, abandoning the city. Those reports were false, but they triggered the decision to replace Rosecrans. And if Rosecrans, in fact, had opened his supply line early, the Army of the Cumberland its supply would be restored. It would be in the circumstance that it found itself in early November, just a couple of weeks earlier, and there would be less talk of Rosecrans being relieved. This was a full month by now after the Battle of Chickamauga. If Rosecrans was going to be relieved for that defeat, it would have already happened. And so we would have, instead of George Thomas commanding the Army of the Cumberland on through the Atlanta campaign, we could well have William Stark Rosecrans remaining in command. Would he work as well with Grant as Thomas did? That's highly questionable. It's also possible that the Secretary of War would have found another way to remove Rosecrans, to transfer him to another department. So it opens up a can of political and sort of military strategic what-ifs that potentially changed the war quite a bit just based on personalities. But we, of course, have no way of answering those questions. But it was very possible, it came very close, that Rosecrans was ready to reopen that supply line right at the moment when Grant relieved him.